The scariest thing to do as a founder is to put your product out there. I'm not talking about just, giving it to a few friendlies or friends, like, hey, we're building this thing, you should check it out. I'm talking working to get your product out into the hands of every single person in your ideal customer profile. It makes sense, right? We've put our heart and soul into building these products. We've worked maybe months, weeks, or even years on actually putting it together. It's beautiful, it's perfect, or at least in our minds it is. And to put it out there and to have complete strangers judge it, criticize it, maybe copy it, or even just say, hey, look, we just don't need this. It's mentally anguishing. And it's one of the toughest things to do as a founder. But here's the thing though, you still need to grow, right? You didn't build the product just for yourself. You built the product so you can get it in the hands of every single person in your ideal customer profile, which means that you have to embrace go-to-market. You actually have to break through these mentally anguishing feelings and say, cool, how do we actually grow this thing? How do we grow revenues? How do we get into more hands? How do we have more conversations? And that way we can make the product better and better. I've been through this, and in this episode, I'm gonna walk you through the 3 principles that you absolutely need to know to embrace this stage called founder-led go-to-market. And when you actually embrace this, the quicker you embrace this, the quicker you can accelerate your path to the next stage of growth, the quicker you can actually build your leadership team and have owners for your go-to-market, and the quicker you can raise that next round or drive to profitability. And when you follow these pieces, you'll actually know how to embrace this ethos of founder-led go-to-market so you can dominate over everybody else. Intro. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Unstoppable. I'm TK, and on this channel, I help SaaS founders like you grow your businesses faster with an unstoppable strategy. Now, if you are new to this channel, welcome. I drop an episode every single Sunday with actionable strategies and tactics from the trenches, from actually being a founder just like you, on how to grow your SaaS business faster. So be sure to hit that subscribe button and that bell icon, that way you'll get notified every single time I drop an episode with the TK energy. Now, if you're already part of this community, this fast growing channel, if you're part of my SaaS go-to-market coaching programs, my people, welcome back. It's really awesome to see you over here. Okay, so I remember when I was running my last SaaS company, Toutapp, we pioneered the sales engagement space. We were at this point where we generated revenues. We had done like a seed round, like a smaller seed round. Well, we hadn't done a Series A or Series B yet. We did that later. And so we had some revenues, we had a product, and I was meeting with one of my early investors. He was a seed stage investor. His name is Owen Davis, amazing guy. At that time, he worked for NYC Seed because I had started in New York City and then moved to San Francisco. And he sat me down over coffee, and this is what makes for a really great investor. They kind of know what to tell you, but they also know how to tell it to you in the right way. And I've been really lucky in my career to have people like that who nudged me in the right direction, whether they were mentors or investors or people that I just got advice from. He was saying, look, TK, I know, and I was still in this baby TK phase where I was like, the product's gotta be great, which is important. He was like, look, TK, there comes a point where you gotta let the product go to 80% good so that the go-to-market can go to 90% good. Because if you don't do that, it will be for nothing. No one will see the product, no one will see your work, and it won't matter. Like the company, there won't be a company. And it was one of those moments, he said it so eloquently, he said it in such a nice way with so much grace. I didn't feel criticized. I just felt like my eyes were like lit up. It just awakened me. And I was like, he's right. Who cares how great the product is if we don't get it into the hands of as many people in our ideal customer profile as possible? And so I went back to the office back in San Francisco. I got to work, I rearranged my priorities, and over the course of the next 12 months, we grew 300%. We raised our Series A, and then another year we grew 300%, and we raised our Series B. I really understood the ethos of, I gotta own go-to-market as a founder. No one else will. No one else is gonna come get me. And if I do that, then I'll be able to hire the right people to own each of these functions. And that was eye-opening for me because it made me realize that it doesn't matter if you have a great product and some revenues, unless you really start to focus on go-to-market, none of it, all be for nothing. And most importantly, at this certain stage, the founder has to own it. Otherwise, you won't be able to recruit great marketers or great salespeople to join your company if you don't get some of the foundational pieces into place. And so that's what I learned. And in this episode, I'm gonna walk you through the 3 principles that really drove it in for me, that were like aha moments for me. I'm gonna walk you through them. So if you're excited to dig into principle number 1 on founder-led go-to-market strategy and how to actually grow your company when you're in the early stages, go ahead and smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It really likes it when you do that. Let's go to principle number 1. So principle number 1 is for me to kind of conceptualize exactly where founder-led fits in the life cycle of your company. The biggest thing I teach founders, especially when I work with them in my go-to-market coaching program, is this is not forever. It's not like you have to do this forever. It just means that you have to go through certain inflection points so that you can then bring on people that can actually help you. But if you let go of it too early, it won't actually get there. So if you think about the different points of your company, when you first start out, let's actually use red for this, you have no revenues, right? And as you start to work towards this and you start to get some customers, you get to what I call initial revenues. Once you get to initial revenues, in SaaS, the benchmark really is how do we get to $1 million in ARR? And then the next one is how do we get to 3 million in ARR? And then you go to 10 million and beyond. In my coaching programs, I work anywhere from pre-revenue all the way to 100 million in revenue. And so I see the whole gamut. But this is in the early stages, these are the critical inflection points that you go through. And the biggest thing to understand is when founder-led is important. And in principle, too, I'll explain why it's important. So typically, and I've seen this across 250 companies that I've coached, supported, advised, all of it. And what I've seen is from this stage all the way to about 1 million ARR, and sometimes it goes even further, this is what we call founder-led GTM. There's one founder that he's a dear friend of mine and I've worked with him forever. He just raised a $63 million Series C round. We'll be doing an episode where I interviewed him. I did it for all my coaching clients before, and so I'm really excited to get it out there. But one of the things that was eye-opening to me was when he was navigating the company all the way up to 3 million in ARR, he still owned go-to-market. And he actually had people underneath him, but he was still the guy that really owned go-to-market. And so what I find with founders that really succeed in SaaS, they own and embrace go-to-market a lot longer than the founders that try to give it away too early. And that was one of the things that I learned. One of the biggest objections that I see is they're like, oh, like I can't, like, how do I do everything? And one thing I have to say is, look, if you don't do this, you likely won't get to the million ARR stage or beyond. And if you don't, and it's not forever though, because what I see also is once somewhere between some revenues and 1 million ARR, what I see is founders start to switch from just founder-led to founder plus leverage. This is the stage where enough stuff starts to work, revenue starts to flow, maybe you get in a smaller round in, or you get your actual seed round done, and you're able to hire doers. The founders are still leading the go-to-market, but there's some doers. You're not quite ready to bring on a great VP of marketing or a great head of demand generation, not necessarily because you don't have the money for it, but because they're just not gonna take that risk. There's not enough great ones out there. So what we see is you see founder plus leverage. You'll hire a couple of salespeople, they'll hire a content manager, maybe they'll get an agency for some leverage, but they'll still own the go-to-market strategy. And so we see that somewhere in between some revenues and the million ARR. And then what we start to see is once you start to break past 1 million, somewhere along here, and this is where like it really varies depending on funding capabilities and recruiting capabilities, you get founder plus owners or leaders, however you want to put it. And this is where they switch from it's completely founder-led, founders are doing everything, to founders with some leverage, to like, hey, I'm the founder, now I'm gonna switch to a true CEO or CTO or whatever your role is, and we're gonna bring in that VP of marketing, we're gonna bring in that head of demand generation, or we're gonna bring in that VP of sales, and they'll start to be the leaders of those functions. So the biggest thing that I say is know what the life cycle looks like for your SaaS company. This is not forever. And the biggest thing I'll say is those who give away go-to-market or don't embrace go-to-market at this stage, they don't tend to be successful. Mainly because, and I'll explain exactly why this is important in the next principle, but it's important to know that you gotta own it. The quicker you give it away, the less likely your company is to succeed. And I say this just from my own experience and also having worked with over 250 companies and seeing the pattern recognition around it, and also just being in SaaS for 10 plus years. And the biggest thing you wanna know is this is not forever. As you start to generate revenues, as things start to work, you can get leverage. As you start to get leverage, you grow even more, and then you can get leaders. And the most important thing to remember before I go into the second principle is at this stage where you're hiring leaders, let me put this in blue, where let's just say you have certain revenues right here, it's a lot easier to recruit great marketers and great salespeople. At this stage, the great ones aren't gonna take the risk because they're like, well, I don't know if this is gonna work and I don't wanna risk my career on this. The great ones aren't gonna do it. You'll get a lot of shitty people, and they every shitty marketer and salesperson can sell one thing, it's themselves. And so you'll be convinced and then you'll lose months, and we've seen this too. And so what you have to realize is you kind of have to get through this piece and maybe hire some green people for leverage, but then you get the truly great people because you're like, hey, look, I know how this thing works, I figured it out. You can take it to the next level, and this is what's working, and I bet you can do it 10 times better. And then the great people are turned on by that and can actually move on that. So that's principle number one. In terms of founder-led GTM, you need to know it's not forever. You just need to know what the life cycle is and when founder-led goes to founder plus leaders and how that life cycle looks like. And so that way you know when to embrace it, and then you can actually hand it off to people that can start to own it. Okay, now let's talk about why founder-led is important at this stage, right? If you're talking about this stage, you're going from some revenues all the way to $1 million in ARR, let's talk about why it's so important. And I've talked about this quite a bit in other videos, but great SaaS businesses have three core pillars. You have a great product. So Baby TK was really obsessed with having a great product, and we did. You also need to have a great market. You need to make sure that you're serving a market that has an urgent and important problem. You also need a phenomenal go-to-market. Whether you're product-led or sales-driven or partner-led, whatever the buzzword you're following is, you still need sales and marketing so that your market figures out that your product exists and actually buys it. That's go-to-market. The thing about this stage is these pillars aren't actually working in tandem. They all work together, meaning the product informs the market, and the market informs the product. The market informs the go-to-market, and the go-to-market informs the product. And what you're doing, what needs to be done to really, really lock in that product market fit in this stage of initial revenues to the $1 million ARR is a constant tweaking of, okay, here's what the market's saying, here's what the product does. We're gonna tweak the product a little bit. Here's how we describe the product to the market when you tweak that a little bit. And you're basically going across these three pillars on a consistent basis with every customer conversation you're having. Where companies fail and where founders fail is they just sit in a vacuum and just keep building the product. There's no market input because there's no go-to-market, and therefore they build the wrong product often. They lose months building the wrong product. Where founders go wrong also is they'll say, look, we'll build a product, but let's outsource the go-to-market. And what ends up happening is this feedback loop doesn't end up happening, and the people running the go-to-market don't know how to iterate on what the customers are saying because they're not founders. They don't understand how this whole feedback loop and operating loop works, this cycle works. Only founders know how to do this, and so the company doesn't mature in terms of how they position themselves in the market, and therefore they never actually get to that product market fit, the product message fit, and figuring out how to sell the thing that they built or build the right thing that the market wants. And so in this stage, I see three traps that founders fall into where instead of just owning founder-led go-to-market and just going for it, there's these three common excuses. And I don't say this to make you feel bad. I say this because I've been in there too. These traps and these excuses I made myself as Baby TK, and I see founders make today, and it hurts the company and slows down the company. The first trap that I hear often, I've talked about this enough in the channel, is, you know what, we're not ready to do sales and marketing yet because we still need the one more feature. And I've talked about this enough times where if you're an avid listener, you kind of know about this. It's that, hey, we're not gonna do sales and marketing yet. We just need this one more feature and then everyone's gonna buy, right? It's a one more feature trap. And I've been guilty of this also as an engineer. I'm like, it's in my comfort zone to say, I'll just build one more feature and then everyone will love it. Instead of saying, let's really figure out what part of the market we're gonna go after. how we're going to position this and sell this and position this as an urgent need. And based on those conversations, how we're going to improve the product, or maybe we're building the wrong feature, but we do need a feature. So that's one common thing that I see that I've been guilty of, and I see other founders that I like get out of when I coach them. The second one I see, I didn't have this overtly, but internally I had it, and I see other founders actually say it out loud, and I catch them and I'm like, oh my God, I can't, like, do you really believe that? And what I hear is we're not ready to scale. So a lot of times I've seen founders think of go-to-market work as kind of like AWS, Amazon Web Services. It's as if you go to the go-to-market gods, like you go to the Amazon gods and you say, yes, sir, I would like 1,000 more servers. And immediately Amazon spins up 1,000 more instances and boom, you now have the capacity. A lot of founders think that's how go-to-market works. They think, and I know it sounds dumb when I say it that way, and I don't think you actually think about it that way, where you're dumb. I actually think that people like connected that way without realizing it. So they'll say things like, oh, we're not ready for that kind of scale yet. They almost assume that when you start doing go-to-market, it's this switch you flip, and just like how 1,000 instances on your Amazon Web Services spins up, 1,000 people are gonna line up out the door to buy your product. That's not how it works. The biggest thing to know about go-to-market activities and work, go-to-market work, this is the core part of principle number 2, is it's delayed plus compounding leverage. That's what go-to-market work is. It's delayed and compounding leverage, meaning the earlier you start, let's just say you start go-to-market work at this stage before you have any revenues and maybe even a product, the sooner you start, the more compound and leverage you're gonna have by the time you're ready for revenues or you're ready for scale. The later you start, let's just say you don't do any sales and marketing, you just go to friendlies, you get a bunch of referrals, you get some revenues, and then you're like, oh, we don't have anyone else that we can sell this to. We need go-to-market, we need sales and marketing. You start here. All of a sudden, this is going to be very delayed. Like, you're not going to see the impact of the work that you do until much later. And that means your revenue targets actually get delayed because you haven't started the work. So a lot of times I'll hear like, well, I'll be on a call with the CEO and the CTO and they're talking about, hey, how do we get the go-to-market going? And the CTO is like, whoa, we should do this in like 3 months when the product's ready. And right, and they're thinking like, oh, as soon as we start the go-to-market work, it's a switch that you flip and then everything turns on and like, boom, your servers are melting down. And the reality is that's never the case. It's delayed and compounding leverage, meaning the sooner you start, nothing happens, and then all of a sudden it starts to compound in a way to drive the results. So the sooner you start, the better off you are. Also, more importantly, the sooner you start go-to-market and really fleshing out the market, the better your product is going to be because you know you're going to be building the thing people want versus theorizing about what you think people should be building. So these two can compound on itself. The last trap that I see often, and I've seen so many founders get burned by this. I've met so many founders that are like, oh, we spent thousands of dollars on this person or this agency. They outsourced and I see two permutations of this, fractional CMO or agency. Let's talk about each. So we've seen founders that have been burned on hiring this part-time fractional CMO. And I always wince at this because I'm like, I feel for the person because they're like, talking to me like, didn't work. And I'm like, I know it didn't work. And I'm sorry that you went through that and someone sold you on that. The problem is, look, I work with over 100 founders in my go-to-market program. A whole bunch of them have raised seed rounds or are profitable, and they would love to hire a full-time CMO. The problem is they have capital, they have growth. The problem is there aren't enough good ones. And a good one can cost anywhere from $250K a year to $300K a year. And so sometimes it's capital constraint, sometimes it's recruiting constraint, like talent constraint. When you meet someone that's a fractional CMO that promises you like, hey, I'm gonna figure this whole thing out for you and we're gonna crush it, they're lying. Because if they were that good, they would just get a $250 to $350K job plus equity at an early stage company, if they were really that good. They're lying to you. And so I see so many people hire these fractional CMOs and the profile of these fractional CMOs are always the same. You go look at their LinkedIn profile. It's like 6 months at this company, 3 months at this company, 10 months at this company. They never had a 3-year stint really making a company successful. And sometimes they'll justify like, oh, I just like figured out the strategy and then they took care of the rest. It's like, no, dude, there's no such thing as that. Like someone's got to own it. And if you're truly a CMO or a VP of marketing or head of demand generation, that means you were there for 3 years to really own it. Show me that experience. Otherwise, I don't think you can do it for me. Not to completely poo-poo on fractional CMOs. I don't know that many personally. I just met a lot of founders that have been burned by that type of role. I don't know what their deal is. All I know is This stuff is hard. Getting go-to-market right, where you're thinking about the product, the market, the go-to-market, the messaging, all these pieces. And the third principle, I'll tell you what the framework I follow is to figure this out with founders. It's hard and only founders can really do it. A part-time person can't do it. If you can get a full-time world-class CMO or VP of marketing, do it. Recruit them, give them equity because they will be able to do it. Most of the times you can't recruit that person because they're just busy collecting paychecks and getting paid handsomely for a much larger stage company. And you'll get to that. When you get to that stage, you'll be able to recruit them really well because you'll be well funded too. And they'll want to work for you. You'll be able to recruit them. And so I see these three traps. That's principle number 2. Go-to-market work is delayed and compounding leverage. And so you really want to make sure that you start on it early, you embrace founder-led, and you don't tell yourself these excuses, whether it's conscious or unconscious, on why you're delaying it. One is the one more feature trap. It's not true. There's never that one more feature. You want to get it in the hands of people as quickly as possible and get real feedback. In other words, we're not ready to scale. It's not just the switch that you flip and boom, 1,000 people show up. It's leveraged work and it's delayed leverage work, right? It takes time. And the last one is don't just outsource it to that fractional CMO that's promising you the world. I'll talk about agency real quick. There are great SaaS agencies, but what we found is they are great at execution. If you're like, look, this is my messaging, this is my ICP, I want you to go run Facebook ads to this lead magnet, go do it, or this free trial page. They're very good at that, but they're not good at figuring out these pieces of product market and go-to-market, the real strategy of a go-to-market. And therefore, I've also met a lot of founders that burned, agencies are like $15K a month for 3-month minimum commitment, and they'll burn through the ads and like nothing happened. And the reason is they did all the activities instead of really figuring out the strategy, and only the founders can do this piece really well. So they lose a lot of money there too. So net, in this stage, you really got to own it. Otherwise, you're just going to lose a lot of time, lose a lot of money. It may even kill your company. And so I want to make sure you avoid that. Now, I have principle number 3 on, how do I actually embrace founder-led? I gave you what the stages are, the inflection points. It's not forever. I gave you what the traps are, like why you should start on it early and why only founders can do this. Now, before I go to principle number 3, let me just pause here for a second. Principle number 3 is going to go into exactly what you need to do. Are you starting to see the power in this? I wanted to do this video, and I know this video is going to run longer than my usual videos, but I see this so often. I see these traps so often. I see founders hurting so often. I'm like, I got to get a video like this out because I had to deal with this too, and I think it still happens. And so I want to make sure I get it in as many hands as possible and talk about this founder-led stage where a lot of people just don't get it right. I was lucky. Because Owen sat me down and told me, like, look, dude, product can go to 80% for a little bit. You got to get go-to-market up to 90% because right now it's not. And if you don't do that, nothing will matter. No one will see your product. It was one of the greatest moments, I think, in my startup journey. So if you start to see the power in this, can I just get a yes in the comments below? Also smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It really likes it when you do that. If you're also at that stage as a SaaS founder where you're needing to embrace founder-led go-to-market, if you're looking to grow your SaaS business, revamp your go-to-market strategy, then you should also check out my SaaS go-to-market coaching program. You don't have to go anywhere right now. I'll tell you all about it at the end of this video. Smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. Let's go to principle number 3. So principle number 3 is, hopefully by the time you've watched this video, you're not thinking like, all right, I need to own go-to-market. We're ready. Like there's nothing to wait for because it's a delayed compounding leverage, right? So it takes time to kick in. So the sooner I start, the better off we're going to be. What do I do? How do I actually do this? You as a founder still have 3 options, and I want to be very pedantic about it. The first option is you hire an agency. The second option, or a fractional person, right? To own it. And essentially what you're doing is you're outsourcing GTM. And we talked about this on why very few people, period, can do this part-time and actually get to the promised land, because this process of product, market, go-to-market, and going over and over to tweak all these things to make it fit, it's like a puzzle piece. When you outsource it, they're not able to do it. They're not able to do it well. Most of them haven't been founders. Only founders can really do this, think in that type of level, and most of them don't care enough. They're outsourced people, so they're not gonna get there, right? So you could outsource it, and every single time I've seen a founder try to do this in the early stages, they just lost months and money. So you could do that. The second thing that you can do is hire, right? You can hire and recruit a VP or a manager. And this is important because if you're doing this, you want to make sure this is someone that has done it before, that is experienced in this. They've like literally owned this go-to-market strategy at this early stage. If you hire someone that was, a cog in a machine at a giant SaaS company, they never did this work. They were handed a bunch of stuff on here's our messaging, here's our ICP, here's our positioning, here's our competitive dynamics. Now go do the thing. And they're like, okay, I can plug into that. That's not what you need. You need someone that's done it in the early stage. If you can recruit that person and you can hire that person, you can afford that person, do it. That is your best option. If you have that, make them a co-founder because that person is special, like truly, really special. You should do that. That's your second option. So you can outsource it or you can hire and recruit someone that's like, hey, you got the marketing chops, you've done this before, let's go. And then there's like the third option, which is literally like what this video is about. Just own it. Founder-led, and I call this the own it option. And that's a little bit of like, it almost reminds me of those TikTok motivational videos. It's like, no one's gonna come for you. No one cares. No one's gonna come and get you. It's you. You gotta make it work. And so it's kind of like, when you're thinking about building a feature for the product, you're not waiting to hire some mythical person or some outside consultant to say they're gonna build this amazing feature for me, right? You just do it. Treat go-to-market the same way. No one's gonna be the magic bullet that solves this for you. Just own it. Own it and figure out the right fit between product, market, and go-to-market. Get dangerous enough on founder-led go-to-market so you can make these pieces work, get the revenues flowing, and then get leverage and then hire the owners. Like just own it instead of just putting it off or using these excuses. And this is essentially what my channel is all about. And this is what I did at my stage. And that allowed me to grow the company, bring on leaders, have owners, and get leverage over time. And because I owned it, because I had that conversation with my investor, I was like, you got to do this. I'm like, he's right. Because I owned it, I was able to bring my company to that next stage. I didn't wait around for some magic bullet. And it's kind of funny when I say it this way, right? Like you're not gonna wait for some outside consultant to solve your feature problem or to solve your scalability problem. You're gonna just figure it out. Why not do the same for go-to-market given how it's 2/3 of the equation for a successful SaaS company? Product is 1/3 of it. So why would you give away, outsource 2/3 of it? That's how important this is, and that's why I'm so passionate about it. Now, if you are owning the founder-led piece, there's 3 things. I work with founders all day long in my coaching program, go-to-market coaching program, to nail this founder-led piece. There's 3 things you'll want to nail because go-to-market is not just about I sent out 1,000 emails or I ran a Facebook ad. That's not what it's really about. What it's about is really getting the strategy right. The key pieces to getting your strategy right for your go-to-market to really own it, the first one is your ICP. This is your ideal customer profile. Everyone thinks they have one, but they don't. Once they start working with me, they're like, oh my God, we didn't have one. So really fleshing out your ideal customer profile helps you really solve this market problem. Like who are we really targeting? The second one is your manifesto. I call this the manifesto. The manifesto is your messaging. Before you run a cold email campaign or you launch on Product Hunt or you run an ad or any of those things, you need to know what you're saying, right? What do you put on the homepage? And so this is essentially your narrative. This is your positioning, and this is your messaging. The way I approach this with founders is we build a manifesto, which is super clear process to follow, helps you nail all these things and gets you dangerous enough on this. You don't have to get the PhD in marketing, you just need to know how to build a manifesto, and I teach you how to do that when we work together. And the third piece is your Broadway show. We'll write this in order. Broadway show. And this is your actual activities. Do you write a blog post? Do you do SEO? Do you do LinkedIn posts? Do you go on Twitter? Do you go on TikTok? Do you run ads? Is it on Facebook or is it LinkedIn? What's the content asset? This is a Broadway show. A lot of times, early stage companies get really scatterbrained. They're like, we're gonna do this week, that week, and they're all over the place. What I believe in is how do you run a consistent Broadway show, a consistent show that you run every week to bring your manifesto to your ICP on a consistent basis on key channels. And that's what I call a Broadway show. And so if you're in this stage where you're building out your founder-led go-to-market and you're embracing and you're like, look, we gotta drive growth, we gotta own it, and we wanna get through this stage so then we can get leverage and then hire the owners. That's the stage that you're in, or the leaders. The framework to follow is build out your ICP, your ideal customer profile, then your manifesto, and then run the Broadway show. And when you do that, you'll have your go-to-market strategy. And something magical happens because then this thing and this thing will start to activate. You'll start to have more customer conversations. You'll start to generate revenues. And also, you'll start to get more feedback on exactly how to improve the product. And so you will no longer be in the one more feature trap. And because you'll have more customer conversations, you'll be building the right product. And because you have revenues flowing in, you'll be better equipped to scale. And because you have all that going on, then you can go into hiring the leverage and really hiring great people inside of your team that can own this. And then you can elevate yourselves to CEO and CTO and whatever other role that you have. So now you know, number one, why founder-led go-to-market is so important. Number two, what are the stages you go through in terms of founder-led go-to-market? And number three, what you need to focus on if you want to embrace founder-led go-to-market and revamp your go-to-market strategy and drive growth for your SaaS business. What you may not know is, well, how do I build out my ideal customer profile? How do I actually build a manifesto that really communicates what we're doing, the messaging, the positioning, so that when people see it, they're like, oh my God, I gotta buy this. When you're running an ad, like what do you say is like the first sentence, or what goes on your homepage? That's all manifesto work and ICP work. And what you may not know is, how do I run a consistent Broadway show? This is exactly why I run my SaaS go-to-market coaching program. Inside this coaching program, I walk you through how to actually flesh out your ideal customer profile, how to actually build your manifesto, and then how to bring your manifesto to your ICP on a consistent basis using a Broadway show. So many founders have gone through this program. We have an entire wall of success stories. Over the next few weeks, we're going to be actually publishing a success story with how the founders that I worked with, what they learned about go-to-market and their 3 principles. We'll be publishing that every Thursday, and I'm really excited about it. We've had so many success stories. Founders have embraced go-to-market. They've unlocked revenues. They've broken through revenue barriers. They've brought on leverage. They've brought on leaders. It's incredible to see. And that's why I'm so jazzed up about this program. It's been so good, and it's truly been an honor and privilege. And so if you're at this stage, I'd love to work together. All you need to do is just go to tkkader.com/GTM. tkkader.com/GTM. And over there, you'll see all the details about the program. We want to make sure that we can actually help you, right? And you'll get to work directly with me. There's no like ex-pizza boy coach that's never founded a company that you work with. Like you literally work with me when you join the program. The way it works is you can learn everything about the program and you can apply to join. We'll review the application, and if it looks like we can actually help, we'll get on a call. And on that call, we'll review exactly where you are, how we can help, and if it sounds like we can help, we'll get you onboarded into the program. And then you and I will start working together to actually flesh out your go-to-market strategy, your ICP, your manifesto, and your Broadway show, and help you scale. And in the program, we've even got training on, as you're scaling, what data to collect, how to iterate on things, and then who to hire, what the job descriptions are, so you can continue down that founder-led path and really scale from there. If you got value from this video, please smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It really loves it when you do that. If you have a fellow founder, if you're part of a SaaS founders group or CEO group, please share this video with them if they would get value from this. My team and I put a lot of love into these videos. You gotta love this stuff to do this stuff, right? Like, this is not something I'm like doing because I'm like, I love doing go-to-market and SaaS, like the intersection of this. I love working with founders. So we put a lot of love into these. If you got value from this, if you're watching to this point, then hopefully you did, smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. I also drop an episode every single Sunday with actionable strategies on how to grow your SaaS business faster. So be sure to hit that subscribe button and then bell icon. You'll get notified every single time I drop an episode. If you're in this founder-led stage and you'd like to work together, just go to tkkader.com/GTM. You'll find out everything about the program, and hopefully we'll get to work together. And lastly, remember, everyone needs a strategy for their life and their business. When you are with us, yours is going to be unstoppable. I'm TK, and I'll see you in the next episode or inside of the Go-to-Market program. Take care. Now, if you are new to this channel, I already said that, with the TK energy. That was the right part. Let's make sure this is recording. Is it recording? I can't tell. People have no idea how much it takes to build a 20-minute video. Okay, let's keep it going.